The rain came down in cold, heavy sheets, soaking through the fine wool of David Lawson's tailored suit. He barely noticed. His shoes sank into the mud as he stood frozen beneath the great oak in the park, his breath catching in his throat. Just a few yards ahead, on a soaked wooden bench, sat an old woman, thin, frail, trembling, trying to eat from a foam container as the rain poured mercilessly over her. Her silver hair clung to her face, her floral dress plastered to her fragile frame. Her hands shook as she lifted a spoonful of rice to her mouth, mixing with tears that rolled down her wrinkled cheeks. It was the kind of scene David had only seen in news stories about forgotten souls. But there was something about her, something painfully familiar. Before we go deeper, if you believe in kindness, in forgiveness, and in the power of second chances, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Your small act could remind someone that compassion still exists in this world. David Lawson was a man the world admired. At 43, he was a self-made millionaire, a name that commanded respect in boardrooms and headlines. His empire spanned across real estate, finance, and philanthropy, though the last one was more for appearances than compassion. He was driven, focused, and ruthless when it came to success. People saw his luxury cars, his penthouse, his expensive suits, and thought he had everything. But beneath all that polish was a man haunted by a past he never dared to revisit. He had grown up in poverty, the son of a single mother who worked night shifts at diners and cleaned houses just to keep food on the table. He remembered the small apartment that always smelled faintly of soap and coffee. He remembered his mother's tired smile, how she'd say, "One day, you'll rise above this, David. You'll make something of yourself." But when she lost her job and the bills piled up, he remembered the hunger, the shame, the way other kids looked at him. He swore he'd never go back. When he turned 18, he left home, angry, determined, and cold. His mother had begged him not to go, but he was tired of struggling. He walked away and never looked back. He changed his number, moved to the city, and built his empire brick by brick. Over the years, he convinced himself that she was fine, that she'd found her way too. He never called, he never returned. But life had a way of humbling even the proudest hearts. That morning, David had attended a business meeting that had gone sour. He'd lost a deal worth millions, and his investors were furious. Wanting air, he'd decided to walk through the park, something he hadn't done in years. The rain began suddenly, and most people ran for cover. But he kept walking, lost in thought, until he saw her, the old woman under the oak tree, alone, soaked, eating like she hadn't eaten in days. He almost walked past her until she looked up. Her eyes, those eyes, it was like a punch to his chest. The world blurred for a moment as memories flooded in. The same gray-green eyes that had looked at him with love every morning before school. The same eyes that had wept the day he left home. He blinked, unsure, unwilling to believe it. Could it really be her? Could this broken, weathered woman be his mother? His heart raced as he stepped closer, each footfall echoing through years of silence. The rain was merciless, but he didn't care. When he reached her, she didn't even recognize him. She looked up briefly, shielding her eyes, mumbling something softly before returning to her meal. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably, her fingers swollen from the cold. David tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He crouched beside her, his expensive trousers soaking in the mud. The smell of the wet earth, the sound of rain, and the sight of her fragile frame shattered something deep inside him. He gently reached out, touching her arm, and whispered, "Mom?" She froze. Slowly, she turned her head. Her eyes squinted through the rain as if searching through fog for something lost long ago. For a moment, her expression was blank. Then it changed. Shock, recognition, pain. "David?" she whispered, her voice breaking under disbelief. "My David?" Tears burst from his eyes before he could stop them. He nodded, his lips trembling. She dropped the spoon, the food spilling into the muddy grass, and raised her shaking hands to his face. "It's you," she cried. "Oh God, it's really you." The sound of her voice, so familiar, so filled with love even after all those years, broke him completely. He fell to his knees beside her, wrapping his arms around her frail body as the rain poured harder. People passing by slowed. Some even stopped to watch, but David didn't care. He held her as if trying to make up for all the lost years in that one embrace. They sat there in silence for a long time, both crying, both broken. The world around them faded. Only the rain and the beating of their hearts remained. When they finally spoke, her words cut deeper than any wound he'd ever known. After he left, she'd tried to find him. She'd written letters that came back unopened. She'd called old friends, searched through phone books, even gone to the city once, but she never found him. Eventually, she lost her job, her apartment, and her health. The years had been cruel. She ended up in shelters, sometimes on the streets, surviving on whatever she could find. She had no family, no friends left, only the faint hope that one day she might see her son again. David could barely breathe as she spoke. Each word was a blade of guilt slicing through the armor he'd built over his heart. He wanted to speak, to apologize, to explain, but there was nothing he could say that could erase what he'd done. He had abandoned the one person who had loved him unconditionally. When he helped her stand, she was trembling. He took off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders, guiding her carefully to his car parked nearby. She hesitated, glancing at him as if still unsure this wasn't some cruel dream. He opened the door gently and whispered, "You're coming home with me, Mom." As he drove through the rain-soaked streets, memories flooded his mind. The nights she stayed up sewing clothes for him, the mornings she walked him to school with a packed lunch she could barely afford, the sacrifices she made so he could dream. And he, blinded by ambition, had thrown it all away. When they reached his mansion, his mother looked around in disbelief. The marble floors, the chandeliers, the art pieces, it was a world far removed from hers. "You live here?" she asked softly. He nodded, unable to speak. The guilt was overwhelming. How could he have so much when she had so little? He guided her to a warm bath, helped her change into fresh clothes, and prepared a meal himself. A simple one, like the one she used to make. As she ate, he sat opposite her, tears silently falling. For the first time in years, his house didn't feel empty. There was warmth again, life again. Over the next few weeks, David canceled meetings, postponed deals, and focused entirely on her. He took her to doctors, arranged therapy, and made sure she had everything she needed. Slowly, she began to recover, both physically and emotionally. And so did he. But the journey wasn't easy. Some nights, David would wake up haunted by memories. Her tear-stained face the day he left, her soft voice calling after him. He would walk into her room just to make sure she was really there, breathing peacefully. She forgave him easily, telling him that a mother's love never dies. But forgiveness didn't erase the years they'd lost. David started using his wealth differently. He created a foundation to help homeless mothers, providing them with shelter, education, and jobs. He visited shelters personally, often sitting with the women, listening to their stories, seeing his mother in each of them. The media praised him for his generosity, calling him a changed man, but only he knew the truth. It wasn't generosity, it was redemption. His mother became the quiet heart of his home. She loved tending the garden, cooking simple meals, humming songs from his childhood. Sometimes she'd tell him stories about when he was little, stories he'd forgotten, or maybe buried deep out of guilt, and each time he'd sit quietly, his chest tightening with both pain and peace. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, she took his hand and said, "You've done well, David. You found your way back." He looked at her, tears welling again. "I just wish I'd found you sooner," he said. She smiled, her eyes soft and kind. "God's timing is never wrong, my son. You found me when you were ready to love again." If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in forgiveness, and subscribe to our channel. It helps us keep sharing stories that remind us what truly matters. As the days passed, David realized something profound. All his life he had been chasing success, wealth, and recognition, but the one thing he'd been missing was love. the kind that only a mother gives, unconditional and eternal. He'd once thought money could heal all wounds, but now he knew some wounds only love could mend. His mother lived with him for 3 more years before she passed away peacefully in her sleep. On the night she died, David sat beside her, holding her hand, whispering how sorry he was and how much he loved her. She left this world smiling, finally at peace, and so was he. After her funeral, David stood under the same oak tree in the park where he had found her. It was raining again. He looked up, feeling the cold drops on his face, and whispered, "I'll spend the rest of my life making it right." He kept his promise. His foundation grew, helping thousands of women and children find hope again. And